They arrive at a mountain in which God gives them the 10 Commandments. The Israelites build a holy vessel, a sacred box, to hold these tablets of the commandments. It's called the Ark of the Covenant.
For centuries, one of history's greatest mysteries has captivated scholars, adventurers, and believers alike: the fate of the Ark of the Covenant. This sacred chest containing the stone tablets of the 10 Commandments vanished without a trace around 586 BCE. But was this disappearance truly a mystery, or was it a deliberate act of preservation? What if the Ark didn't simply vanish, but was strategically moved to protect it from destruction? Today, we dive deep into the compelling evidence and ancient accounts to explore what might be the solution to this enduring enigma: the convenient disappearance of the Ark of the Covenant. To understand the significance of the Ark's disappearance, we need to first understand what exactly this ancient relic was. The Ark of the Covenant wasn't merely a decorative chest, it represented the very center of ancient Israelite worship and the physical manifestation of God's presence among his people. According to biblical accounts, God provided Moses with detailed instructions for building the Ark around 1440 BCE during the Israelites' exodus from Egypt. Craftsmen constructed it from acacia wood, a durable material native to the region, and overlaid it completely with pure gold, both inside and out. The chest measured approximately 3.75 feet long by 2.25 feet wide and 2.25 feet high, making it portable yet substantial. The Ark's lid, known as the mercy seat, featured 2 golden cherubim with their wings spread toward each other. Between these angelic figures, the divine presence was said to manifest. Inside the chest lay the stone tablets inscribed with the 10 Commandments, the foundational covenant between God and the Israelites. Some traditions suggest it also contained Aaron's rod that budded and a pot of manna, though biblical accounts vary. More than just a container for sacred objects, the Ark represented tremendous spiritual power. Biblical narratives credit it with miraculous events: the parting of the Jordan River, the collapse of Jericho's walls, and the defeat of enemies in battle. When the Philistines captured it briefly, plagues reportedly followed them until they returned it. The Ark traveled with the Israelites throughout their wilderness journey, always carried by consecrated priests using poles inserted through rings on its sides. No one was permitted to touch the Ark directly. When the people camped, they placed it within the tabernacle, a portable tent sanctuary behind a veil in the Holy of Holies, where only the high priest could enter once a year on the Day of Atonement. After centuries of nomadic existence, King David eventually brought the Ark to Jerusalem around 1000 BCE, establishing the city as the religious center of Israel. His son Solomon later housed it in the magnificent temple built around 957 BCE, where it remained the focal point of worship and sacrifice. The last confirmed resting place of the Ark was within Solomon's temple in Jerusalem, where it had been housed for centuries. Built around 957 BCE, this magnificent structure stood as the centerpiece of ancient Israelite worship. The temple's innermost chamber, the Holy of Holies, provided the Ark's sanctuary. This windowless, perfectly cubic room measured 20 cubits, approximately 30 feet in each dimension, separated from the rest of the temple by a thick veil. Only the high priest could enter this sacred space, and even then, just once annually on Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. Inside this restricted chamber, the Ark rested beneath the wings of 2 massive cherubim statues that spread their gold-covered wings across the room. These imposing figures, each standing 15 feet tall with a wingspan of 15 feet, created an even more dramatic setting for the ark than its own smaller cherubim. Biblical records provide surprisingly few direct mentions of the ark after its installation in Solomon's temple. We know from the historical narrative that the temple underwent various periods of neglect and restoration over subsequent centuries. During the reign of King Josiah in the late 7th century BCE, we find the last explicit biblical reference to the ark still being in the temple. In 2 Chronicles 35:3, during Josiah's religious reforms around 622 BCE, the king instructed the Levites, "Put the sacred ark in the temple that Solomon son of David, king of Israel, built. It is not to be carried about on your shoulders." This passage reveals something significant. The ark had apparently been removed from its proper place during previous periods when idolatry flourished under apostate kings. Josiah's command to return the ark to its rightful position suggests that pious priests may have hidden it to protect it from desecration. This sets an important precedent. The ark had already experienced at least one convenient disappearance for its protection, albeit temporarily. After this reference during Josiah's reign, the biblical record falls silent about the ark's whereabouts. Just a few decades later, in 586 BCE, Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar's forces besieged Jerusalem, destroyed Solomon's temple, and carried off its treasures to Babylon. When Jerusalem fell to the Babylonians in 586 BCE, the destruction was methodical and thorough. King Nebuchadnezzar's forces stripped the temple of its treasures, burned the sacred structure to the ground, and led the surviving Israelites into exile. Yet amid the detailed biblical accounts of this catastrophe, a puzzling omission stands out: no mention of the ark's fate. This silence speaks volumes. The absence of any record of the ark's capture or destruction suggests something happened to it before the invasion. Had the Babylonians seized such a significant trophy, ancient chroniclers would almost certainly have documented it. Similarly, had it been destroyed, such a traumatic event would likely have merited mention in Jewish writings. Why would the biblical authors who meticulously documented the temple's pillaging remain silent about their most sacred object? The most plausible explanation is that they intentionally concealed information about the ark's whereabouts, a strategic silence to protect it from future threats. Evidence for this deliberate secrecy appears in later Jewish writings. The Talmud, compiled centuries after the temple's destruction, contains a cryptic passage stating, "When the ark was hidden away, there was hidden with it the jar of manna, the flask of the anointing oil, Aaron's staff with its almonds and flowers, and the chest that the Philistines sent as a gift." The key word here is hidden, nay, not destroyed, not captured, but deliberately concealed. This mysterious vanishing created a void in history that has never been filled. When the Second Temple was built after the Babylonian exile, the Holy of Holies stood empty, a silent testimony to the ark's absence. Jewish tradition acknowledges this, noting that the Second Temple lacked 5 crucial elements present in Solomon's temple, with the ark topping the list. Of all the theories about the ark's fate, perhaps none is as compelling as the Ethiopian claim. In the northern highlands of Ethiopia, in the ancient city of Axum, stands the Church of Our Lady Mary of Zion. Within this modest compound, behind heavily guarded doors, allegedly rests the Ark of the Covenant, not a replica but the actual biblical chest that once stood in Solomon's temple. For centuries, the Ethiopian Orthodox Church has maintained this extraordinary claim with unwavering conviction. But how could the ark have traveled nearly 1,500 miles from Jerusalem to the highlands of Ethiopia? The answer lies in an ancient Ethiopian text called the Kebra Nagast, or Glory of Kings, now compiled in the 13th century but based on much older traditions. According to this account, the journey began with a famous biblical encounter, the visit of the Queen of Sheba to King Solomon. While the Bible merely mentions this royal visit in passing, Ethiopian tradition identifies the queen as Makeda, ruler of an ancient kingdom spanning modern Ethiopia and Yemen. Impressed by Solomon's wisdom and the God he worshipped, she converted to his faith during her stay in Jerusalem. The Kebra Nagast then departs from biblical narrative describing how Solomon, captivated by Makeda's beauty, tricked her into his bed. From this union came a son, Menelik I, who later traveled to Jerusalem as a young man to meet his father. Solomon embraced his son, anointed him, and sent him back to Ethiopia with a retinue of nobles and priests, the firstborn sons of Israel's elders. Here's where the story takes its crucial turn. Before departing, Azariah, the son of the high priest Zadok, had a divine revelation instructing him to take the ark to Ethiopia for safekeeping. Without Menelik's knowledge, Azariah and his colleagues secretly removed the ark from the temple and replaced it with a replica. Only during the journey home did Menelik discover what they had done. Initially shocked, Menelik ultimately accepted this as divine will when miraculous events occurred during their journey. The ark supposedly levitated and transported the entire party across the Red Sea in a single day, a journey that would normally take months. Upon arriving in Ethiopia, Menelik established a new kingdom based on Israelite traditions, with the ark as its spiritual center. This narrative provides a convenient solution to the mystery. The ark disappeared from Jerusalem not in 586 BCE during the Babylonian invasion, but centuries earlier during Solomon's reign. The replica left behind would have been what later kings worshipped, explaining why Josiah needed to restore it to its proper place. And this replica would have been what eventually disappeared during the Babylonian invasion. What makes the Ethiopian claim particularly intriguing is that it has remained consistent for centuries, passed down through generations of clergy. It's not a recently invented theory, but an enduring tradition that has shaped Ethiopian identity and religious practice for nearly 3,000 years. The Ethiopian Orthodox Church takes its role as guardian of the ark with utmost seriousness. Every Ethiopian church contains a replica of the ark called a tabot, treated with profound reverence. During Timkat, the Ethiopian celebration of Epiphany, these tabots are paraded through streets in a joyous ceremony that draws thousands of worshippers, a living testament to the centrality of the ark in Ethiopian Christianity. If the Ethiopian claim is true, then the ark hasn't been lost to history. It's being actively guarded to this day. In Axum, this sacred duty falls to a single man known as the Keeper of the Ark, a position shrouded in mystery and reverence. The current system of guardianship follows strict ancient protocols. Only one monk serves as the keeper at any time, living in a small building attached to the chapel of the tablet where the ark supposedly resides. This monk, chosen for his exceptional piety and dedication, takes a lifelong vow never to leave the chapel grounds. He alone may view the ark, and even he does so rarely, understanding the biblical warnings about its power. The keeper's daily routine revolves entirely around tending to the sacred relic. He performs prayers at specific times, maintains the sanctity of the chapel, and ensures the ark remains undisturbed. When he ages or becomes ill, he selects his successor, typically a young monk who has demonstrated unwavering devotion. The transfer of responsibility happens in complete privacy, with the dying keeper passing on oral instructions that have never been recorded. This tradition of single guardianship dates back centuries, creating an unbroken chain of custodians that, if legitimate, would represent one of the longest continuous religious duties in human history. The current chapel of the tablet was built in the 1960s specifically to house the ark, replacing older structures that had served the same purpose for generations. The extreme secrecy surrounding the ark has both protected it and fueled skepticism. No outsider, not even the Ethiopian patriarch or government officials, is permitted to see the sacred object. When British journalist Graham Hancock spent years researching his book The Sign and the Seal in the 1980s, he gained unprecedented access to Ethiopian religious leaders, but was still denied a glimpse of the ark itself. This level of protection might seem excessive, but it aligns perfectly with biblical accounts of the ark's dangerous power. The Old Testament describes how unauthorized contact with the ark caused death, as in the case of Uzzah, who was struck down merely for steadying it when it tilted. If the Ethiopian clergy truly believe they possess the authentic ark, their extreme caution makes perfect sense. While the Ethiopian narrative might initially sound like religious legend, several lines of evidence lend it credibility. First, there are the well-documented historical connections between ancient Israel and the region encompassing modern Ethiopia. Archaeological findings confirm trade routes linking these areas during Solomon's era. The kingdom of Sheba or Saba did indeed exist, controlling vital incense trade routes across the Red Sea, making the Queen's visit to Solomon historically plausible. Genetic studies have revealed fascinating connections as well. The Beta Israel, Ethiopia's Jewish community, show genetic markers linking them to ancient Middle Eastern populations. While this doesn't prove the Ark's presence, it does establish historical movement of people between these regions. Additionally, Ethiopian Christianity contains distinct Judaic elements not found in other Christian traditions, including dietary restrictions, circumcision practices, and Saturday Sabbath observance alongside Sunday worship, suggesting early Jewish influence predating conventional Christian missionary activity. Archaeological evidence within Ethiopia itself offers intriguing support. The ancient stone obelisks of Axum, some standing over 75 feet tall, demonstrate that this civilization possessed advanced engineering capabilities when the Ark allegedly arrived. The original Church of Mary of Zion dates back to the 4th century CE, consistently associated with the Ark's presence. Beneath it, archaeological excavations have revealed older structures showing continuous religious significance at this site extending much further back in time. Perhaps most compelling are the similarities between Ethiopian religious practices and ancient Israelite traditions. The Ethiopian Orthodox Church's use of tabots, wooden tablets consecrated to represent the Ark, mirrors the function of the original Ark as a container for the Ten Commandments. The ceremonial carrying of these tablets during religious processions with cloth coverings and special carriers who must maintain ritual purity strikingly resembles biblical descriptions of how the Ark was transported. The endurance of this tradition is also noteworthy. Unlike many historical claims that appear suddenly in response to political or religious developments, Ethiopia's Ark narrative has remained remarkably consistent for centuries, preserved through manuscripts dating back to medieval times and oral traditions extending even earlier. External historical sources provide circumstantial support as well. When Portuguese Jesuit missionaries reached Ethiopia in the 16th century, they documented the already ancient belief in the Ark's presence there. These observers, initially skeptical, were impressed by the sincerity and consistency of the Ethiopian account. The timing of the Ark's supposed arrival in Ethiopia also aligns with periods of religious turmoil in ancient Israel. During Solomon's later years and his son Rehoboam's reign, biblical texts describe growing religious apostasy. This creates a plausible context for concerned priests to remove the Ark for safekeeping, precisely what the Ethiopian account suggests happened. Even the extreme secrecy surrounding the Ark in Ethiopia parallels biblical precedents. In ancient Israel, only the high priest could see the Ark, and then only once annually. The Ethiopian practice of limiting access to a single guardian follows this same pattern of restricted access. While the Ethiopian claim offers a compelling narrative, it isn't the only theory about the Ark's disappearance. Another prominent explanation centers on the prophet Jeremiah and stems from an ancient text called 2nd Maccabees, written around the 2nd century BCE. According to this account, Jeremiah, who prophesied during Jerusalem's final days before the Babylonian conquest, received divine instruction to hide the Ark. The text states, "It was also in the writing that the prophet, in obedience to a revelation, ordered that the tent and the Ark should follow him, and that he went up and beheld God's inheritance. And the prophet commanded that fire come down from heaven to consume the sacrifice." The narrative continues, describing how Jeremiah led followers to Mount Nebo in modern-day Jordan, the same mountain where Moses viewed the Promised Land before his death. There he discovered a cave and concealed within it the Ark, the tabernacle, and the altar of incense. When his companions tried to mark the path, Jeremiah rebuked them, declaring, "The place shall remain unknown until God gathers his people together again and shows mercy to them. Then the Lord will disclose these things, and the glory of the Lord will appear." This account provides a different but equally convenient explanation for the Ark's disappearance: divine preservation through prophetic action. Jeremiah, foreseeing Jerusalem's destruction, acted to protect the sacred objects until a future restoration. What lends this theory credibility is Mount Nebo's biblical significance and its geographical proximity to Jerusalem. Located about 30 miles east across the Jordan River, it would have been accessible to Jeremiah during the tumultuous period before Jerusalem's fall. Additionally, the mountainous terrain features numerous natural caves suitable for concealment. Archaeological expeditions have searched Mount Nebo for centuries, hoping to discover the hidden cave. In the 1980s, an American team claimed to have found tunnel systems that might conceal the Ark, though no definitive evidence emerged. Not all theories about the Ark's fate involve deliberate preservation. Some scholars propose a simpler explanation. The Ark was destroyed during the Babylonian sack of Jerusalem, its precious metals melted down and repurposed as war plunder. This view aligns with known Babylonian practices. When conquering nations, Babylonian forces typically destroyed religious objects associated with defeated people's gods. This demonstrated the supremacy of Babylonian deities and prevented sacred items from becoming rallying points for rebellion. The Babylonians were particularly thorough in their destruction of Jerusalem's temple, burning it completely after removing valuable materials. The biblical book of 2 Kings documents the impressive inventory of temple treasures taken to Babylon. All the articles of gold and silver, the gold bowls, the censers, the basins, the pots, the lampstands, the dishes, too numerous to count. Such detailed accounting makes the Ark's absence from this list puzzling, unless it had already been destroyed. Archaeological evidence from other conquered sites reveals the Babylonians' systematic approach to plunder. Valuable metals were typically melted down immediately, converted to ingots for easier transport. If the Ark followed this pattern, its distinctive form would have been lost forever, explaining why no trace of it has ever been found. Supporting this theory is the fact that when the Second Temple was built after the exile, no attempt was made to recreate the Ark. Jewish religious practices evolved to accommodate its absence, suggesting the community accepted its permanent loss. Another theory places the Ark's disappearance much earlier than the Babylonian conquest. According to biblical accounts, around 925 BCE, just 5 years after Solomon's death, Egyptian pharaoh Shishak, likely Shoshenq IV in Egyptian records, launched a massive military campaign against Israel. The book of 1 Kings records, "He took away the treasures of the temple of the Lord and the treasures of the royal palace. He took everything, including all the gold shields Solomon had made." This raid presents another opportunity for the Ark's removal from Jerusalem. As a magnificent gold-covered object, it would have been a prime target for Egyptian looters. Egyptian wall reliefs at the Temple of Karnak actually commemorate Shoshenq's campaign, listing captured cities and plunder, though they don't specifically mention the Ark. If the Ark was taken to Egypt, it would explain why later biblical references to temple worship seem to continue without mentioning it directly. Some proponents of this theory suggest the Ark might have eventually been placed in an Egyptian temple or royal treasury, possibly at Tanis, the royal city where Shoshenq ruled. Interestingly, this Egyptian connection inspired the plot of the 1981 film Raiders of the Lost Ark, which depicted the Ark being discovered in the fictional Well of Souls in Tanis. While the movie was pure fiction, it drew on genuine historical connections between Egypt and the Ark. Archaeological support for this theory remains limited. No Egyptian records specifically mention capturing the Ark, and subsequent biblical narratives imply its continued presence in Jerusalem after Shishak's raid. When King Josiah ordered religious reforms centuries later, his commands regarding the Ark suggest it was still accessible, though perhaps temporarily displaced. Among the more controversial theories about the Ark's fate is one involving the Knights Templar, the medieval military order formed during the Crusades. According to this theory, the Templars discovered the Ark beneath Jerusalem's Temple Mount during their occupation of the city in the 12th century and secretly transported it to Europe. The Templars established their headquarters on the Temple Mount directly above the ruins of Solomon's Temple. Historical records confirm they conducted excavations beneath this sacred site, though their findings remain undocumented. Proponents of the Templar theory suggest these knights, who became extraordinarily wealthy and powerful in a short time, owed their rise to discovering sacred treasures, possibly including the Ark. After the Templars' suppression in 1307, when King Philip IV of France had their leaders arrested and eventually executed, rumors spread that they had hidden their legendary treasures. Various European locations have been proposed as the Ark's final resting place: Chartres Cathedral in France, Rosslyn Chapel in Scotland, or remote hideaways like Bornholm Island in Denmark. Some versions of this theory connect the Ark to other medieval mysteries, such as the Holy Grail legends or the origins of Freemasonry. These elaborations, however, typically rely more on speculation than historical evidence. The timing creates an obvious problem. How could the Ark remain hidden in Jerusalem for over 1,700 years, surviving multiple conquests and rebuildings, only to be discovered by European knights? Moreover, the Templar theory contradicts earlier accounts. If Jeremiah hid the Ark at Mount Nebo, or if it traveled to Ethiopia with Menelik, it couldn't have remained in Jerusalem for the Templars to find. Similarly, if it was destroyed by the Babylonians or taken by Pharaoh Shishak, it wouldn't have been available for medieval discovery. The Templar connection gained popularity through fiction, pseudo-history, and conspiracy theories rather than academic research. While the Knights Templar certainly existed and did control the Temple Mount, no contemporary medieval documents mention them finding the Ark or any other biblical treasures. The search for the Ark hasn't remained confined to historical text and religious traditions. Throughout the 20th and 21st centuries, archaeologists, explorers, and amateur enthusiasts have conducted expeditions seeking physical evidence of the sacred chest. In Jerusalem, archaeological work around the Temple Mount has been hampered by political and religious sensitivities. The area remains one of the most contested religious sites in the world, sacred to Jews, Muslims, and Christians alike. Limited excavations near the Western Wall have uncovered artifacts from the Second Temple period, but nothing conclusively connected to the Ark. In Ethiopia, research has been similarly restricted. The Chapel of the Tablet in Axum, where the Ark allegedly resides, remains off-limits to researchers. In 2009, the Ethiopian Orthodox Church announced plans to display the Ark publicly, creating international excitement, but later backtracked, claiming the time wasn't right for such a revelation. Mount Nebo in Jordan has attracted numerous expeditions based on the Jeremiah theory. In the 1980s, American archaeologist Jim Irwin, a former Apollo 15 astronaut, led an expedition that claimed to discover an elaborate tunnel system within the mountain. However, no definitive evidence of the Ark emerged from these explorations. Egyptian archaeological sites associated with Pharaoh Shoshenq I have been extensively excavated, particularly at Tanis, while impressive discoveries have been made including intact royal tombs with gold artifacts. Nothing resembling the Ark has surfaced. Modern technology has enabled new approaches to the search. Ground-penetrating radar, satellite imagery, and computer modeling have been employed to identify potential hiding places without physical excavation. The 2003 project used geological surveys to identify caves beneath Mount Nebo that matched descriptions in ancient texts, though political instability in the region prevented follow-up investigations. The challenge for archaeological verification lies not just in physical access, but in identification. What would the Ark look like after thousands of years? Would it remain intact, or would wooden components have deteriorated, leaving only gold elements? How would researchers distinguish the authentic Ark from replicas or similar ritual objects from other cultures? Despite these challenges, the archaeological hunt continues. Israeli researchers maintain interest in unexplored chambers beneath the Temple Mount. Ethiopian scholars document oral traditions and ancient manuscripts that might provide new clues. Jordanian authorities periodically permit limited explorations around Mount Nebo. This ongoing search reflects more than academic curiosity. It represents humanity's enduring fascination with tangible connections to spiritual narratives. The Ark, whether preserved in Ethiopia, hidden in a cave, melted down by invaders, or transported to Europe, continues to inspire archaeological pursuits that blend scientific methodology with the quest for spiritual meaning.